we are all grateful to have a very good list of panelists out here who come from very deep expertise in the industries. Uh, my name is Gans, Subramanian, and I represent B-TRNSFRMD. We are a digital CX consulting firm based out of Dallas, Texas, and I will be moderating this session. And in this session, we will be taking the expertise and the experiences of our panelists to understand how companies are resetting their strategy for the post-pandemic world, and how are they thinking about exits through various phases of the pandemic. We are 6 months into this pandemic, and we are still seeing a lot of activity out there. So how are companies thinking about exits? The third thing is, once this pandemic is over, hopefully once we get a vaccine, how do we make sure that we are renewed and we have put all the right strategies and capabilities in place to take advantage of all the growth and leadership that's going to come on the other side of the pandemic. And the last thing is, this pandemic has taught us that there's always an event that's waiting to occur out there, which is beyond our capabilities. So how do we prepare ourselves so that when the next event comes across, we are resilient and we are capable to deal with it? So having said that, I want to turn it over to each of the panelists to just introduce themselves and share with us what they would like to speak in this session. Padma?
Sure. I'm Padma Parthasarathy. I head consulting and digital services for Tech Mahindra. And yes, I think during this time we've had to work with clients through all phases of the pandemic. So I'll be sharing, some of the experiences that we've had in that respect.
Hi, I'm Dr. Sodhi. I'm the Senior Vice President and Group CIO of AMITY Education Group. Thank you so much, CXO team, for inviting me. I'm absolutely honored and privileged to be a part of this panel with Mr. Subramanian, Parthasarathy, and Mr. Sagar. Thank you so much.
Hello all, I'm Sagar Sen. I'm responsible for business IT of entity Netmagic.
Thank you so much. Before we start off, I just wanted to put a few points out there in terms of what we are seeing in the pandemic. I think we are 6 months into the pandemic, and at least in the US, we've got a first election coming in a pandemic. So even the government has to learn to deal with how to do things in a big way. But I think it's fair to say that the doom and gloom scenario that people thought in March, that the economy will be disrupted totally, I think it's playing out in different ways for different companies. Personally, in the US and across the globe, I'm seeing there are companies that are actually doing very well. They've taken advantage of this pandemic to rejig their operations, to rejig their strategy, to even rejig the customers that they're going behind. A great example of that is Uber. Uber's traffic for their car pickup services dropped almost 90% in March of this year. Sorry, it feels like a year is over, but 90% of this year. But if you look by June, July, they had almost got their revenues back to 50% of the base by focusing a lot on food delivery and stuff, right? Uber Eats became a big part of their stuff. So there are examples across the industry where we are seeing that companies who are taking advantage of this pandemic to really rethink what's the good way to do that. Another great example is the restaurant industry. I was talking to Maggiano's, which is one of the largest restaurant chains in the US. I was talking to the ex-CFO, and they mentioned that, their revenues are 80% of what is normal, because delivery and pickup services has become a big thing. So now they are thinking, how do they reduce the footprint of their restaurants and focus a lot on delivery and curbside pickup, right? But that also means that the kitchen operations have to be changed, their restaurant operations have to be changed, they have to make different investments, they have to even change the layout of their restaurants so that there are people who can come and pick up without disrupting the restaurant people who are coming in and stuff like that. So as we go about that, I had questions for each of you as to, what is the pandemic lessons that you are finding among your customers, among your institutions. But before I launch into it, any of you want to share any experiences that you have seen in the pandemic over the last 6 months? Dr. Sodhi, especially education is a big sector that's been impacted very quickly.
We all have seen that COVID-19 has given an unprecedented impact. Taking a near wartime measures, but we all are seeing a very big global slowdown. All the domains are facing actually disruptions. So there are changes in processes, there are changes in operating business models too. In fact, if we see our work culture and even our life is changing with a rapid speed because there is a continuously of data, automation, and emerging technologies. Now we have heard new words like quarantine in last few days' time. But I personally believe in today's digital world, no one is quarantined or no one is in isolation. We are just in physical isolation, but we are connected digitally. Even this, whatever this physical disconnection, this is also a temporarily or in a very suspended kind of mode.
Absolutely.
If we see, digitization has increased economic productivity, like you had given few examples. It has made the world within reach. It has allowed everyone to participate in this kind of global economy. The way use of mobile has brought changes in rural sectors few years back. Similarly, live streaming in education domain is a remarkable innovation of this century. I believe that the key learning, as you asked from me, from this pandemic is that technology must be leveraged in a substantial measure to mitigate the impact of this disruptions or this COVID, what we say. This disruption must be viewed as a learning and as an opportunity to adopt new future technologies. It must be considered as an enabler to adopt digitization to work faster and smarter. In fact, a lot of studies says that pace of digitization has increased manifold due to this COVID scenario. Tasks which were largely managed by human, it got sea change with technology because we all know that with technology, it brings ease, flexibility, and a faster speed. You know, one key work which helped us to sail during this pandemic time is doing the best use of technology in form of digital platform. We brought 1.75 lakh students on digital platform within 48 hours of time.
Wow, that is
We use
impressive.
digital platform. Yeah, we use digital platform for online classes, for group meetings, for interactions, for guest speaker webinars. In fact, in last 3 months, we conducted 3,500 plus webinars from the industry experts for our students. In fact, this pandemic has it has given us advantage to interact with such renowned dignitary like you, even if they are sitting at a remote place. Besides this online classes, we have even organized culture and youth forum activities also on this digital platform. In fact, we have brought all the activities of our organization onto this digital platform. We besides that, IT team has done a lot of research and we found few tools and we integrated it with Google platforms, with H5P tools, and integrated with digital platform so that this online education doesn't become a monotonous. It should become a interactive. It helps us to make it a more collaborative learning and engaging more with the students. All of these activities we have done with having just one objective, to give a digital power to our students and faculty members so that they can do everything on this digital platform, what they used to do in a physical interaction class, or even they should do much more than that also.
Very, very, very good points. In fact, I think, what I'm seeing now today is with kids in the US is that the digital platforms are giving them more creativity to explore studies in a different way. And many of us not born in that generation feel that it's not a great way of studying, but having a 6-year-old daughter, she is, in fact, I conducted a high school startup boot camp for 16 weeks starting March, and we had to do it entirely over Slack. And one day I was having issue with Zoom. I didn't know what to do one of the settings. It was actually a 4th grader who told me how to do that Zoom setting.
Yes.
It's amazing that we can do that. But Dr. Sodhi, one follow-up question on that, right? As you go through this pandemic, and obviously you're going to emerge on the other side with ability to get students back into your colleges and stuff like that, what are the 2 or 3 infrastructure pieces or capabilities that you're building which will give you long-term success, specifically when it comes to retaining students, growing your students, and even growing the market of students. Like you said, you can now go to other countries and get some more students.
Our future culture will have a lot of technologies in our daily life. This is very clear and very obvious. And a lot of high tech devices like robots or tech gadgets or live streaming, they all are going to product a gigabyte of data. And lot of new buzzwords like deep learning, they are powering this new next generation on computing platform. In fact, there is a research which says that deep learning will bring more economic value than even in the internet.
Sure.
There's streaming technology, and delivering videos, audio, games. They are even reshaping human habits also. Industry automation and robotics, they are increasing productivity. They are empowering humans. And as a academic institution, we are bound to make our students ready to use these kind of future technology. So a lot of such activities are becoming a part of the course curriculum, and they are actually using these technologies for having their academic qualifications.
That's a great point. I think technology is going to become a part and parcel of everything that we do, right? I mean, a few years ago, Andrew Horowitz, Mark Andreessen, if you remember, some of us, he was the father of the browser. He started a company called Netscape. So he runs a venture capital startup incubator called A to Z. If you guys have not heard of it, it's a great incubator to go out there. He wrote a very defining article a few years ago called "The World Is All Software Right Now," right? And basically, what he's saying is that whatever you do, whether you're a restaurant, whether you're a car company, you have to have technology, especially software, as part of your strategy. And looks like you guys at AMITY are already doing it, and that's good to see. And that's actually a very good observation, Dr. Sodhi. What I'm seeing today is that, and it started many years ago, that developing countries and Asian countries are moving much faster in that, even compared to the US or Europe. Right? It started with the mobile technology. You remember India was the fastest penetration of mobile in the world, but we are seeing that technologies like SaaS, cloud, AI, countries like India, countries like China, countries like Europe are adapting it much faster than America. So that's a great point. Thank you, Mr. Sodhi. I quickly want to move on to Ms. Parthasarathy. You worked with as a consultant. You are probably working with some of the leading global brands out there. There are clearly some winners and clearly some laggards in this pandemic, right? I hope there are more winners than laggards. But to me, it all comes down to two things. One is that how are they changing their strategy, right? How quickly are they able to change their strategy? And the other thing is, how quickly are they able to support their strategy with capital allocations, right? I mean, strategy is very good to have. Anyone can do a strategy, but if you don't have the money, you don't have the resources to implement a strategy, you just can't do it, right? What are you seeing in terms of the linkage between strategy and capital allocation, in terms of companies that are doing things to preserve their own business versus how much of they are spending or retweaking strategy to actually take advantage of opportunities that are opening, right? First of all, are there opportunities that you're seeing companies go behind? Would love to hear your feedback on that.
Sure, so absolutely, Gans, and I think there's in this, we went through this period of what you call resilience, which is as organizations were trying to adapt to the new normal, get online, make sure their employees could work from home, and as Dr. Sodhi was saying, make sure you could provide the education services to people in their homes, etc. And then there's a period of recovery where we're saying, okay, there will be now some people who are come into work, so there could be some physical interactions depending on the industry. And then finally, at least in Tech Mahindra, we're calling it a kind of revitalization. So I think the good thing that's happened is that people have not dealt with this in, oh, this is another change and I have to deal with it. They're actually looking for innovation and innovative ways of dealing with the crisis, which is, I think, the big difference that we're seeing now. And if a pandemic of this kind had to happen, ever, then maybe this was the right time, because all of the technology has come together in some ways. The conferencing technology that we're using today for this kind of meeting, for instance, 10 years ago, we would not have been able to do it so seamlessly, right? And then there's all of the collaboration tools and things that have also come up. I mean, so it's a lot easier to do work remotely now. And we've also seen the way change adoption has changed. So, you talk about that classical change cycle, right, of denial and then frustration, and then you kind of get into depression before you can move on to adopting the change. And here what we found is actually denial was probably not there at all, right? People went straight into a bit of frustration and depression, but then moving on and dealing with the change and in fact integrating the change very much into their lives. And that's what I think we've seen, not just for people like you and me, but obviously organizations as well, as they dealt with this. And I think that is because of that attitude. If you look at even the Indian government, I'll talk about companies and corporates, but if you look at the governments and how quickly they have been able to adapt. I mean, the Indian government had solutions like Arogya Setu within a few weeks, right? And covering the entire population of the country. We did work with the government in Delhi for building a blockchain solution that could, validate e-passes, and this was completely so touchless, etc. And these are all governments have moved very quickly to actually take decisions on these solutions and implemented what were actually leading-edge solutions, right, for their time. So that I think is happening. When it comes to corporates, depending on the industry, I think they've had changes. Some sectors like media and entertainment itself, the online media companies have obviously done very well, but then the entertainment which requires physical presence like theaters, etc., haven't done. And they're obviously looking to adapt. Some of them have had huge reduction in revenue, like you said, like Uber, 95%. But organizations that are able to actually adapt their business to the online world have done so quickly. They've also, I think, when it comes to the, one, of course, the strategy and the adaptation of their businesses has happened. And I'll tell you a little bit about what we put as a kind of theory around that. But then we've had, this, it's not so much capital allocation that you have to do, because so much is available as a service today. And organizations are willing to offer this as a service. You actually can do this without having to spend large amounts of money. So you've had some costs of infrastructure and things that you've done in the past, but you're able to adapt to the world without making those large infrastructure investments. I think that's a big change. We in Tech Mahindra had also come up with a term that we call conscious enterprise. We're just trying to find the right term for it. But essentially, even before the pandemic, what we saw in the industry was organizations that were looking to adapt very quickly to changes that are taking place and technology changes that are taking place specifically, but also in economic and other changes. They were looking to grow and kind of assimilate capability very quickly. So either you learn yourself as an organization or you acquire or partner with the capability from outside. So that was the second part. And then finally, most organizations now have started to look for what's called purpose, which is essentially something that goes beyond, enables them to do something more for society, for their customers, for their employees, etc. If you put those things together, that concept is what we're calling the conscious enterprise. Organizations that adapt, learn, and also have this sense of purpose. And I think that is what has emerged today. If I look at my own parent company, the Mahindra Group, was able to very quickly adapt into changing their factories to create PPE, for instance. Taking technology from partners like Ford to make some of those things, to make ventilators quickly. So a lot of businesses have had, have adapted very well to the changes and the demands that have come up.
Can you, I think two things that you talked about just stood out for me, Ms. Padma. One is you talked about conscious innovation, and I was talking to the CEO of Dallas Venture Partners, Mr. Dayakar Pushkar, yesterday. He's a very famous venture capitalist out of Dallas, and he's made some good exits. And I was talking to him yesterday, and he said that the future is all about conscious capitalism, which means that purposefully go behind things that make better lives for each of us, and the pandemic has made it better. So that's one thing that you point out, and I'm seeing a lot of companies are doing that in a big way. The second thing that you said earlier in your talk is we are seeing with our customers that the world is moving from capex to opex, right? Anything that you do, people don't want to sink in a lot of money upfront because they don't know what the future is all about. Can you share a couple of examples of Indian companies that you are seeing which are really taking advantage of these trends and innovation opportunities in the pandemic?
So I think most of the SIs from India have actually been able to, and if you look at the results also that are coming out in the IT services firms, while most organizations saw a dip in revenues for the first quarter of the pandemic and maybe a little bit coming to the second quarter, most of them haven't. I mean, all of us were planning for 10-20% kind of reduction because that's what we thought the market would see. But actually, it has been quite different. And I think all organizations have been able to adapt themselves. Like Dr. Sodhi was saying, if an educational institute can move to a completely online model with innovation built in that short period of time, I think the world is actually expecting that from providers like us. And that's where I think a lot of service providers have risen to the occasion to be able to do that. And I think the good thing was, again, it's not that these models are new. The SaaS models and the ability to invest or co-invest with customers, etc., has been happening over time. I mean, we did that with an aircraft manufacturing organization for whom we built this thing called the aircraft health monitoring system, which enables them to sell aircraft not as CapEx but as OpEx. So they sell flying hours of the aircraft to their clients. Okay, so those are things that we've been investing on for a while. So that's really helped us in terms of providing those capabilities to customers. We've had a solution which provides the desktop as a service, or the whole access mechanism to a company's network as a service. We saw a huge uptake of that business, obviously, during the pandemic, as organizations are obviously trying to enable working from home and working from home in this secure kind of as a service model.
Yeah, we are seeing the same. One of the things that I expect is, because of the pandemic where people don't really care where you live and where you do, I expect offshoring to increase a lot more because, companies with a good talent base, no longer you have to be in the US to do it. In fact, we've had customers from all across the world reach out to us because they're like, we don't care where you are because it's what it is. Thank you so much for the examples. Mr. Sagar, I think one of the things as a technology provider that you are seeing is that, capital markets are very strong still. There's a lot of access to capital, which as a layman, I'm still amazed why the capital markets are not following the real markets, but it looks like there's plenty of capital out there. And you're seeing a very robust capital market for technology companies. You had Happiest Minds make a lot of money now. You have a lot of IPOs in the US. Why do you think technology companies are unique in the ability to withstand this pandemic, right? Why are they able to grow? Whereas other companies like manufacturing, some of the manufacturing industries are going down. Would love to hear your perspective.
Thanks for asking this. It's a very, very interesting observation. I must say that, yeah. To answer your question, see, the technology was the center of any business, any economy even before the pandemic. Yeah, but pandemic has just doubled down that need since the lockdown. So your almost everyone today at home, okay, we use cloud computing, whether through it is your online business or online your shopping or your streaming or your your Facebook, etc. Everywhere it is probably, and most probably, and it is your cloud computing. And we are surviving this pandemic only through these 3 or 4 method of your day-to-day life. Yeah. So first of all, if you say that I think that the primary reasons why the technology companies are raising funds at a steady rate, I think that first of all, it is the new normal. What's the new normal? You see that your pandemic has forced every one of us in different behavioral changes throughout our societies across the globe. Yeah, including the way we work, including the way we shop, the way we interact with each other. These changes are accelerating your existing dynamics at a very, very faster pace, and driving towards more and more digitization of our businesses, consumer behavior. And it's a great example is Dr. Sodhi took that the way the education is being delivered today. Yeah, you can see that how this your cloud computing, how this your digitization is your getting accelerated. Plus, once I saw in one of the newspaper that your more than 200 billion devices are getting connected by 2020. So you can see that the way that technology is changing, the way the technology is going to behave, and this your 200 plus billion connected devices itself is going to enable us your digitization and data enabled services. Globally, 70% of your top companies are technology related.
Yep.
In the market. The technological companies are actually very, very profitable today, and valuations are quite reasonable. So relative to its growth potential, valuation of the technology sector in terms of price to your earnings ratio, if you see, which is actually second profitable sector in S&P 500 your index.
Absolutely. And I think you've raised a good point. I think Ms. Padma can probably attest to it. In the olden days, service providers were categorizing their customers by verticals, saying, it's you're a healthcare or stuff. But today, I come from a lot of retail industry. Every retailer is competing with AWS.
Yes.
Is Amazon a retailer? Is Amazon a logistics company, or is Amazon a technology company, right? So I think at the core, to go back to what Mark Anderson says, is that every company is a technology company at its core. You have to think digital first. You can't think digital later on. And I think to me, a great example of a company that has thought digital first is a company called Freshworks out of Chennai, which really grew out of Chennai, and they have really moved the SaaS market in a big way. Girish Mathrubootham has done a fantastic job. So I think I have a very strong feeling that India is going to lead the digital first technology wave, and it's going to follow Israel in terms of, when you think security, you think Israel, and when you think SaaS, you're going to start thinking India now in a big way. And I have lots of examples that I can share later on. But I think we've got a short time left. I just want to go through another round of questions with each of you people and see what it is. And we'll keep this short so that we can get this wrapped up within the time limits that the organizer set for us. Dr. Sodhi, I think you are dealing with a very unique customer segment, which are probably teenagers and young men who by nature have very short attention spans. And they're more technology savvy than us, right? What would be your advice to companies, not in just terms of technology, but in terms of human resources? How do you think of your people so that they can take some of the lessons that educational institutes have taken and prepare themselves better? Because we tend to think technology a lot, but what about human resources? What about organizational capabilities? What would you suggest? What are the things that they should think about?
Very important parameter. Thank you so much for asking me. We all know that technology has become the driver of success of all modern businesses. It has become indispensable and very crucial for big, small, or any kind of businesses. Mobile have become our handheld supercomputers. It is giving us a lot of information access and knowledge at a fingertips. In fact, we always say that future will be information rich society, a next generation machine learning analytics, a visualization tool to predict patterns, a virtual reality which will empower us to correct information. But a very important main thing is important is how we are going to use this available information. Are we going to use this available information for the goodness or for the welfare of the society or not? We believe that digital solution and technology platforms alone will not be sufficient, because trust remains very essential for the success of any business. Human trust actions or personalized relationship will always remain as a key. Robots or AI cannot replace a human judgment, which is based on creativity or empathy for a meaningful decisions. We must blend digital and human capabilities to achieve success. This pandemic had shown us a path of humanity and empathy also.
Agreed.
Few decades, when we will talk about this time, always everyone should remember we should have something meaningful to talk about this time. what we have done during this time, how we have created, some goodness, how we have created some commitment. We should have something to share these kind of things. It is very important to stay committed to build a beautiful tomorrow with the help of technology as well as just human values or empathy.
Very good point. Excellent point, Dr. Sodhi. And in fact, we were talking to one of the agencies last week, and they had a survey which said that 80% of customers still prefer speaking to a human being on the other line. So I think what you're saying is that technology has to be co-opted into the human element. And I think your point about as we exit this pandemic, let's come out with something human reminds me of this person, the Sikh restaurant owner in Dallas. His name is Ram Singh or something. He took upon it, the Sikh religion has a lot of giving and stuff like that. And he has become famous in the entire state of Texas because every day he feeds 1,000 people. Because a lot of people don't have money, don't have food. So you're absolutely well said, Mr. Sodhi, that we got to take away something, and technology should enable the human interactions and not become a replacement for human interactions. Thank you so much for that point. I think that's a very key takeaway for us. Mr. Sen, I think, can you talk about how should companies use AI and cloud so that they are, becoming more flexible and agile going forward, right? Because I think, my wife works for a $14 billion oil and gas company. And in the middle of the pandemic, they were doing a 2-year project. And I was smiling at her and telling her, I don't even know you're doing a 2-year project. I think everyone has now realized that long-term projects are meaningless because the world is changing so fast. Many years ago, Walmart started a SAP project that was 5 years in length, right? Today, if you go to Walmart and tell them I want to do a 5-year project, they'll say, you must be kidding yourself. I don't know what 3 months down the road is. So how can you use cloud and AI to really make yourself more flexible, changeable, adaptable?
Let me take an example of your entity Netmagic. Yeah. We had adapted most of your SaaS services and your cloud services. In fact, before the pandemic, yeah, and that has helped us to focus during pandemic more on our customer, to resolve our customers' issues, problems, SLAs, managing those things. Rather, your of course there is a shift. Yeah, of course during pandemic lockdowns, of course there is a shift, but that shift was very quick and very smooth. Okay, just because we had adapted cloud and we adapted SaaS services. Now, how it is going to help you? Of course, it is going to improve your speed because of this year pandemic. People started to work from home. Lots of your demand in the network. Lots of demand came in your IT resources. Okay, then lots of our demands came from our customers to increase their resources in the data center services, cloud services. So you see that it really helped. There's a cloud and your agile your technology really helped people, okay, to increase their speed, increase their adaptability. Work from home adoption is really went quite smooth because of cloud. Today we are going towards your predictive analytics of our hardwares. Yeah, how hardware maintenance, when a hardware is required to maintain, those kind of data analytics we are getting from AI only. Okay, then the AI is helping also us to plan our business, our customer behaviors. Yeah, all the data that we are analyzing through AI, it telling us which customer require what kind of services, what in which period of time, etc. That's giving us the business planning, capacity planning at our end. Yeah. Yes, that's the way forward, I would say. And after that, once the IoT is coming into picture, full implementation of IoT in manufacturing, etc., AI is going to definitely take a leading role.
Very good, very good points. I think hardware is moving to the cloud has become such an amazing thing because we are seeing that some companies are facing so much flexibility in demand right now that if they had to do the hardware on-prem, they would never have been able to meet those demands with, there are now call center technologies in the cloud where you can add double the number of agents within 24 hours.
Yep, exactly.
Click of a subscription. I think it's very important. And we tend to think that hardware is going to go away. It's not going away. It's just moving to the cloud, right? Hardware is always going to be integral to it. Ms. Padma, I think we've always heard about black swan events. You know, Mr. Nicholas Taleb, he really brought there this theory of black swans, events that we can never predict. And I'm sure he must be sitting back in his chair and thinking, man, who would have predicted a pandemic, right? I mean, when we started the year, we all thought that we would make our vacation plans, we would think about business plans, and then come March 9th, actually Feb 26th is the market started dropping in the US, and March 9th, country started locking down. In fact, I had a plan to go to India in first week of March to meet my parents, and then the country was shut down, and here I am 6 months not having met my parents. But one of the things that I keep hearing is that on the other end of the pandemic, there are a lot of habits that customers have gained over a period of 1 year that they're not going to let go of. So I keep hearing from a lot of my customers that even after the pandemic, we are going to live in a new normal where customer habits are going to be different, modified. There'll be some habits that will remain. How do you think, companies should adapt their strategic planning and their business intelligence to really be able to predict these new customer needs and come up with services and products that help them? What are you seeing?
So I think it's a combination, as Dr. Sodhi said, it's a combination of things that you can do through technology in terms of prediction and the actual physical study actually. So I'll give you a very quick example. So we made a couple of acquisitions in this whole customer experience space as TechM kind of changed its philosophy from connected world, connected solutions to connected world, connected experience, because we saw that the world was moving to one where experience was so important. And we made a couple of acquisitions. One was a company called Pininfarina, which is very well known because they used to design the Ferrari cars earlier. And they are very much in the digital design world now, or the physical plus digital design world. And then we made another acquisition of a company called the Bio Agency in the UK. So in 2016, one of the large airline companies had selected Tech Mahindra as a strategic partner. They already had about 4 or 5 very large SIs, in fact some of them bigger than us, working with them. And the CEO threw a challenge to the CIO saying, none of your technology vendors can come up with a next gen app for us, which would actually catch on with their customers. And so the CIO therefore invited all their technology companies to participate in this contest, a hackathon, to produce their ideas for this next gen app within a period of 10 days. And almost as an afterthought, he invited Tech Mahindra saying, oh, you're the new kid on the block, I mean, you should also participate. So we went in with Bio. We hadn't at that time finished the acquisition. We were in the process of doing so when we partnered with them. And what we found was that Bio, because of the nature of their business, they went at it saying, let's understand the customer needs. So those 10 days were spent understanding what customers go through, the pain points that they have when they travel, and coming up with something that could address that. All of our competitors sat and ideated on their own without necessarily having done that study. Now, this is 2016, not very long ago. Today, everyone obviously would go out and study the needs from their customers. But at that time, we were the only company that had done that. And we went back and said things like, customers are upset about, excess baggage. Every time I travel, I'm within the baggage limits. The one time when I'm over, you just slap this huge charge on me. So we said, give them a baggage credit that they can use. So every time they're traveling below the limit, they get a credit, and then they can use it for the one time that they're over, etc. We gave them a lot of suggestions about how you can alert customers to delayed flights even before they leave the home, so that, so there was a whole set of things that we did. We won that hackathon. I mean, it was like a 10-minute presentation to a Shark Tank kind of format, but we won that because we had done that. Now, organizations obviously have adapted to that model now, and everyone is going through this thing of understanding what it is that customers actually need. So, if you're applying for a mortgage, you're not just requiring a loan, you're doing it because you want to buy a house. In order to do that, what is that you have to understand about that customer, and where else can you help them? Okay, so so those are the things that I think we have started to understand. Now, in this world, obviously, analytics and AI is helping us to put the pieces of that puzzle together and understand where your customer is coming from, what the context is, and then to design that right product and also the service around it. Because we're also starting to understand that it's not just the digital product or service; it's all of the processes that go behind it that you need to be able to do that and to make it most effective. So I think that those are all the changes that we are seeing, and the good thing is we're seeing it, change very rapidly, as we speak. So all of the new digital solutions that we're providing to customers have this element. Dr. Sodhi talked about trust, and I think that's a huge consideration today for any organization providing services of any kind, not just digital, I think. Especially during the pandemic, I think trust has been a major aspect. So how do organizations not only have processes and products that you can trust, but also demonstrate that effectively to customers? Because it's very easy to lose reputation, just by one troll or something. Right. So how do you actually deal with all of those things? So those are the areas that, again, when we look at the conscious enterprise, we say, how do you learn, adapt to those kind of things also, and deal with that? Yeah. So yeah, so those are various aspects. But having, and again, to the human versus online only. I had surgery at the end of June, actually, on my wrist, and therefore I was in a cast for several weeks. And I couldn't type on the keyboard easily, so I started to use the speech-to-text software. And this is things that we recommend to our clients with their stand-in, right? Telling them this is the answer to all your problems. And I realized how much is still there as a gap between this, what you want from the speech-to-text software and what it can deliver. So I had this thing, typing out things like killing when I said colleagues and stuff like that. So yes, I think there is still a way for those things to evolve. But the good thing is that all of the investment is happening, all of the thought leadership is going into making those things happen.
Killing versus colleagues could have probably been your Freudian slip, but I don't want to.
It was reading my mind, maybe. It was even smarter than I thought.
No, I think those are very good points, and I think excellent points, Ms. Padma. I think one of the things that I heard from one of my ex-colleagues at my previous firms was that, consumers are going to lead the technology wave. So like you rightly pointed out, a lot of the technology we tell our customers, we are starting to use it, and that's going to make the experiences better for us. So that's a great point. And with that, I think we are towards the end of our session. I think we've had some very good examples. I think it's fair to say that there are three things that came out of this session. One is, like Mr. Dr. Sodhi pointed out, education has been leading the thing. And one of the experiences that has been is that we've got to put technology first. We got to make it a part of integral everything. But at the same time, I think the human element, the human trust should not be lost. I think that's a very, very important point that came out. I think the second point is companies that design experiences rather than just products or services are going to be more successful going forward. And we've got to be flexible in what we do. And it's fair to say that, we have to actively look at cloud and AI as important technologies to see how we can do that. And we have to go towards a digital first phenomena. And I truly believe that India is taking the lead in all of these. I think we had good examples of government sectors doing it and stuff. So truly there are some winners, and there are some people who are still doing some catching up. And I hope that, once this vaccine is out and we are in the post-pandemic world, a lot of these companies who have been innovating during this phase and not just preserving their business will come out with much larger market shares and market growth that we can do of, right? With that having said, Dr. Sodhi, Mr. Sen, and Ms. Padma, thank you so much for joining us today. Your experiences are very valid, and we are very honored to have your experience on this panel. Thank you very much for having us on this session.
For more updates from CXO TV, please like and subscribe to our channel.